Your person has been going through an emotional awakening, especially in the silence that has stretched between you both over the past few months. This distance has made them confront the consequences of their own behavior. They now realize how selfishly they acted, how they allowed their own issues, distractions, and ego to take priority over the deep and sincere connection you tried so hard to nurture. At the time, they may have convinced themselves that they were doing what was best for them, but in hindsight, they see how their actions created the illusion of a one-sided bond, one where you gave everything, and they gave almost nothing in return. This realization has hit them hard. They can no longer ignore the emotional damage they caused or pretend that their silence didn't leave a mark. The guilt weighs heavily on them now, especially because they know you never deserved to be treated that way. Since the separation, they've had ample time to reflect on the way they treated you and how deeply that affected you emotionally. They admit to themselves, perhaps even for the first time, that they emotionally neglected you and left you out in the cold when all you wanted was love, commitment, and connection. The thought of this brings them pain because they now understand the emotional toll their absence and indifference must have taken on you. Your person never truly appreciated the comfort and warmth you provided until it was no longer there. It's that quiet, aching kind of regret, the kind that creeps in during lonely nights and refuses to let go. They are burdened with guilt for turning their back on someone who offered love so freely and purely. One of the things that haunts them most is how much they took your energy for granted. It's not just your physical beauty or the way you effortlessly draw others in with your presence, although they've always noticed that. What truly captivated them, and still does, is your unique energy. There's something deeply soft and nurturing about you, a quiet strength that comforts, heals, and draws people closer. It's this essence that they find themselves missing the most. You made them feel seen, safe, and accepted, things they may never have admitted they needed until they experienced the void your absence left behind. Now, with the distance between you both growing wider, they are painfully aware of what they've lost. They're not just missing you, they're craving the moments, the connection, the laughter, the comfort of your presence. They're thinking back to the times when you gave them all of your affection and attention, and it dawns on them how badly they mishandled what they had. They're ashamed of how they treated you, especially knowing you put them first, above everyone and everything else in your life. While you were busy offering your heart, they were distracted, distant, and cold. And now that you're no longer giving them that same energy, they're realizing just how rare and valuable it was. They admit to themselves that they tried to trigger jealousy in you, perhaps in moments of immaturity or confusion, but doing so only reflected their own inner turmoil. Back then, they didn't understand the harm they were causing. But now they do. They see how they used your love as a cushion for their own insecurities, how they pushed your boundaries to test how far your love would stretch, never expecting it to one day be out of reach. That realization stings more than anything. There's a saying that we often don't realize the value of something, or someone, until it's gone. That truth has never felt more real to them than it does now. Your absence has become a mirror, forcing them to face parts of themselves they never wanted to acknowledge. They're beginning to grasp that what they lost wasn't just a relationship, it was a connection that was deep, spiritual, and transformative. A connection that many people spend a lifetime searching for. Now, they are left sitting in the aftermath of their own choices, feeling the weight of everything they threw away because of pride, ego, and emotional immaturity. They're questioning why they acted the way they did, why they couldn't just allow themselves to be vulnerable, open, and honest with you. They're finally starting to understand that love isn't something to be tested or taken for granted, it's something to be nurtured, protected, and cherished. Your person may not have the courage yet to express all of this to you, but in their quietest, most honest moments, these thoughts consume them. They are learning, perhaps the hard way, that unconditional love is one of the rarest and most beautiful gifts a person can receive. And they are now living with the knowledge that they had it, and lost it, because they couldn't recognize its worth in time. You have no idea how much effort I had to put in just to be likable, to fit in, to belong, to seem like I was part of something. It wasn't just about social acceptance, it was about survival in a world that constantly measures your worth by appearances, success, and how well you can play the game. There was always this quiet but brutal pressure to measure up, to keep up with the best. I wasn't just trying to fit in, I was fighting not to be left behind, not to become invisible. And in that exhausting pursuit, I learned to wear masks. I learned to act like someone who belonged, someone who was confident and composed, even if I was falling apart on the inside. Eventually, I realized that no matter how hard I tried, the only person I could truly rely on was myself. No one else was going to save me. No one else could fully understand what I was going through beneath the surface. So I made a decision to turn inward, to give my full attention to myself. It felt empowering at first. For the first time, I wasn't chasing anyone's approval. I wasn't bending over backward to be what others wanted. I was focused on me. But that attention slowly turned into isolation. The more I withdrew, the more I sought comfort in quick escapes. I discovered that I could numb the harshness of this world through pleasure, temporary highs that made the pain disappear, even if just for a while. These escapes became habits. And over time, some of those habits turned into addictions. They crept in quietly, without me even realizing how much control they had taken. I thought I was in charge, but eventually, I couldn't do without them. They became a part of me, my secret crutches, my silent battles. And then I met you. You were unlike anyone I had known before. When I looked at you, I saw someone untouched by the kind of inner chaos I had become so familiar with. You didn't seem to have any of those bad habits, any of that desperation to escape. You didn't ask anything unreasonable from me. You didn't pressure me to be someone I wasn't. You weren't like the others, women who often seemed so consumed by superficial things, by drama, or the constant need for validation. You moved through the world differently. You were grounded, calm, almost detached from the noise everyone else was caught up in. You lived in your own world. And somehow, that world made you look effortlessly beautiful. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You didn't have to. There was something so natural and unforced about you, so organic. You were like a breath of fresh air in a life that had become stale with routine and emotional noise. Just being around you made me feel like maybe, just maybe, there was another way to live. A quieter, purer, more meaningful way. For so long, I had convinced myself that the way I was living was all I had. I had wrapped myself in distractions and escapes so tightly that I couldn't see beyond them. But when you entered my life, it was like a mirror was held up to me. I began to see myself differently. I began to question the choices I'd made, the patterns I'd accepted, the version of myself I had become. You didn't even have to say anything. It was just your presence, your authenticity, that made me pause and reflect. I realized that something was off. Not just with how I was living, but with the person I had allowed myself to become. I had lost touch with who I was before the world told me who I needed to be. I had forgotten what it felt like to just be, to exist without pretending, without running, without constantly trying to keep my head above water. You reminded me that there's strength in stillness, and beauty in simplicity. I don't know where this realization will take me. I don't have all the answers yet. But I do know this, meeting you shifted something inside me. You didn't try to change me, but you made me want to change. Not for you, not to fit in, not to be liked, but for myself. To find peace. To let go of the weight I've been carrying. And maybe, to finally feel like I belong, not to the world, but to myself. Lately, I've been going through a phase of deep introspection, and I've come to realize so many profound things about my life, about love, and about my personal growth. In the middle of these realizations, I constantly find myself thinking about you. I feel a deep sense of gratitude, not only for the lessons I've learned but also for you, for your presence in my life, and for the connection we share. I sincerely thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for being part of this journey. More than that, I thank God for bringing us together in this lifetime, because I believe that meeting you wasn't a coincidence, it was a divine alignment, something that was meant to be. Since the day we met, I felt a shift within me. It's as though something awakened inside me, a longing to grow, to become more aware, more honest with myself, and more connected to something deeper. My growth as a person has accelerated in ways I didn't think possible. It feels like I've evolved more in the time I've known you than in all the years before. Even more surprisingly, this growth became even more intense during our separation. Though that time apart was painful and confusing at times, I now see it as one of the most transformative periods of my life. I think, deep down, we both knew that space and time away from each other were necessary. We needed it to reflect, to heal, to confront parts of ourselves we had been avoiding, and ultimately to become stronger and more grounded individuals. It's clear to me now that the separation wasn't a sign of failure, it was an essential step toward becoming the people we're meant to be. We had to find ourselves apart before we could truly come together in a meaningful, lasting way. And I believe we are on that path, toward a love that is mature, conscious, and committed for a lifetime. As I look back on my life, I can see how uncertain and confusing everything used to be. I've always had this feeling that the reality around me wasn't the whole truth. I noticed how people seemed to live on the surface, performing roles that society expected of them, chasing success and status without really understanding why. Authenticity was rare. And because I didn't have a clear sense of what was truly right or wrong, I often ended up following the crowd, chasing what others told me mattered: money, recognition, validation from the outside world. I thought that was the way to live, the way to be happy. But then I met you. And you were different. You didn't seem to be in that race at all. You had this calmness about you, this quiet sense of purpose that didn't depend on what the world thought of you. You weren't trying to prove anything to anyone, and that made you stand out. It made me feel like I could breathe around you, like I didn't have to pretend. There was something refreshing, even healing, about your presence. You seemed so grounded, and yet there was a sense of mystery in you, a depth I couldn't quite grasp, but that drew me in. I realized that you had a kind of inner strength and authenticity that I'd rarely encountered before. You made me question everything I thought I knew about life and love. Being around you made me want to become more honest with myself, more emotionally aware, and more aligned with what truly matters. You weren't interested in superficial things, and that helped me realize how much time I had spent chasing them. You reminded me that it's okay to slow down, to listen to my heart, and to seek out real connection, not just comfort or security. Looking back now, I understand that meeting you was the beginning of a new chapter in my life, a chapter of deeper meaning, more sincere emotions, and authentic transformation. I can see how much I've changed, how far I've come, and how much more clearly I see the world. And I know that our journey, both together and apart, has been a crucial part of that change. So again, thank you. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for showing me a different way to live, to love, and to grow. Thank you for helping me see myself more clearly, and for reminding me of what really matters. And above all, thank you for being a part of my story. I believe that whatever happens next, our bond has already made a permanent mark on my heart. And I truly hope that, with the strength we've gained, we'll find our way back to each other, not as the people we were, but as the stronger, wiser, more loving versions of ourselves, ready for something lasting and true.